Hello.
Hello, SOSers.
Hello, saucers.
Hello,
Welcome
saucers.
to Late Night Jams with Delilah.
Doo-dee-doo-dee-doo.
Late Night Murders with Molly and Alyssa. I hope you guys are listening to this at night.
Yeah, this is something you're going to want to watch or listen to at night. Turn all your lights off, put some candles on, get some popcorn, get whatever, get your favorite blanket. It'll make you feel more comfy because...
An emotional support animal.
Yes, your emotional support animal, stuffed animal, human, whatever you prefer, because we're going to get into some deep, dark, creepy, deaky...
Creepy deaky. Freaky deaky. Creepy deepy.
Creepy deaky. Yikes. Yikes, Alyssa. Stories.
Yes.
We scoured Reddit for the creepiest. A lot of these are very paranormal. Like, a lot of these have paranormal elements, but some don't. But, like, either way, they're
I
just
love that.
Oh, yeah. Either way, they're just so unexplainable and so wild that it's just like, I don't know how I'm living on the same planet with events that occur like this, you know?
And, because the world already isn't dark enough, we thought we would just... No, but actually sometimes, when things are going to shit, it does help to hear about murders.
Too. I think so, too, because especially when the stories are so fantastical...
Yeah.
And a lot of these happened a long time ago, too. I feel like, I don't know if some are maybe more in the recent, I can't remember, but I think there's an escapism to horror stories.
Exactly.
Even if they're true crime, there is an escapism there because it seems so out of whack that it can't possibly happen in your timeline
I know.
of living. But they are, and we are going to jump right the F in.
Let's
the first is... the Hinter Kyfak murders. Have you heard about the Hinter Kyfak murders?
I had not. Had you?
I think I did. But basically, it was about this farm in Germany in 1922. They're isolated in...
100 years ago.
Yeah. Oh, my God, you're right. It's 100 years now. And they're owned by the Gruber family, which include farmer Andreas, his wife, Kazilia, their adult daughter, Victoria, her two children, Kazilia and Josef, as well as a maid, Maria Baumgartner. In April 1922, the bodies of every member of the Gruber family were found slaughtered in hideous and gruesome fashion throughout the property under mysterious circumstances that have, even a century later, never been solved. So in the days leading up to the murders, Andreas had been noticing strange things at the farm, such as footsteps in the snow leading to the woods toward the house and never heading back out, a newspaper in the house that he didn't remember buying, and one of the family's two house keys disappearing. So there's a newspaper, keys disappearing. While Andreas remarked on these odd occurrences to his friends, he never reported them to police. Another strange fact that went unremarked upon until after the murders was that the Gruber's previous maid had quit 6 months prior due to the fact that she believed the farm was haunted. So there was already...
there's some weird... I'm sorry, footprints in the snow going to your house and not coming back out of the woods is not... I'm gone.
I know.
Bye.
So when police asked her why she believed Heintrich had ghosts, she said it was because she kept hearing footsteps in the attic and had a constant feeling of being watched. Yeah, goodbye. Andreas had dismissed her concerns as superstition, much to his detriment, obviously. So despite their reputation of keeping to themselves, the town became concerned when the daughter didn't come to school on April 1st. Soon the family's absence from church? So absence. Oh my God, Alyssa. Absence from church.
Absence?
Absence from church was noticed, as was the considerable amount of mail for them piling up at the post office. By April 4th, a search party was assembled by neighboring families led by Lorenz Schittenbauer, a former farmer, yikes, who had previously had a relationship with the widowed Victoria. What they had found was truly shocking, a grisly scene, and you might want to skip the next segment if you don't care for those kind of details. So trigger warning. The elder Cecilia had her skull cracked from multiple blows to the head, as well as bearing signs of strangulation. Andreas had blood caked all over his face, which was described as like shredded, with his cheekbones sticking out of his ragged flesh. The daughter, Victoria, had also had her skull shattered with signs of her face being hit with a blunt object. The younger...
I think at this point, my mom's tuned out of this episode.
Sorry.
No, just...
But trigger warning, guys. The younger Cecilia had her jaw shattered and her face and neck were covered in slashing wounds. These bodies were found in the barn covered with hay, with the maid Maria and little Joseph were found inside the farmhouse covered with sheets and a dress, respectively. The two of them seemed to have died fairly quickly after a number of blows to the head and the face. The tool used in the murders was likely a hammock, a pickaxe-like tool used for digging, a mattock.
I was like, a hammock.
Yeah, sorry, guys. I forgot how to read today, so sick. They say that the whole family died instantly, with the exception of the 7-year-old Cecilia. The autopsy revealed that she had lived several hours after the murders, and clumps of her own hair were found in her hands, suggest that she had torn out her hair in distress before dying of shock.
That made me cry.
Yeah.
Like that part. Oh my God.
Horrible. Despite the horrifying fates of the Grubers, the search party found that the farm animals and family dog had not been farmed and had, in fact, they've been fed. This is yes, because I remember
this is weird.
The animals, the dog, everyone had been tended to and fed in the days after the murders. So everyone in this family died, but because they found, proof of the fact that these animals were like fed, like these animals were taken care of by the murderers. It's so bizarre.
Yeah. Smoke
has been seen coming from the chimney in those days as well, suggesting that the murderer had been living calmly at the farmstead.
Yeah.
And if the if the Gruber's former maid had to be believed, it's possible he had been living inside the Hinter Kyfak home for over 6 months. The police,
that seems to me like what happened. Somebody was living there and was in the house, because if the animals were fed and cared for and smoke was coming out of the chimney days after they'd all been murdered, and the footprints and the newspaper and the house key,
too much. And the police initially suspected vagrants, but nothing from the farm had been stolen, with large sums of money still found in the house. So they stole nothing. Lorenz Schittenbauer, who had been in a relationship with Victoria and might have even been Joseph's father, drama, became a suspect, but he was cleared of suspicion and police couldn't place him at the scene of the crime. Most heinously, rumors arose that Andreas had fathered Joseph on his own daughter and had killed the whole family before turning the mattock on himself. Ew. However, none of the family's wounds were self-inflicted, so this theory is also dismissed. So basically, like we said, this has never been solved. They think maybe that it could have been perpetrated by someone that knew farm work, because they maintained the farm, the animals, in the days after the family was murdered. I don't know, but everyone has pursued law enforcement, psychics, everything. Shortly after the autopsies of the Gruber family, their heads were removed and sent to Munich, where clairvoyants were employed to seek out metaphysical clues about the family, but to no luck. So,
oh God, yeah,
I think that's it's just so intense how they were murdered, and the fact that the murderers were living with the dead bodies and maintaining the animals. I don't know how you pick and choose your humanity.
Well, it's somebody who had a personal vendetta against them, because you don't just do that to a whole family. And I don't know, but Jesus Christ.
So
also
weird.
How easy, quote unquote, easy it was to commit murders 100 years ago, before any obviously
DNA testing,
DNA, cameras, cell tower, nothing. It was nothing. You're just out on a farm, free reign, bitches.
Yeah. And by the way, we are going to be shouting out all the links that we're going to be reading off these cases, so you guys can read more, because there's tons of cases on these sites that you can dig into afterwards. So we'll put that in our show notes.
More disturbed. You can get even more disturbed.
Yes. What's next, Molly?
So Now we have the Catherine Marie Hobbs case, Kathy Hobbs.
Oh, this is creepy.
This happened in Las Vegas, July 23rd, 1987. So Kathy Hobbs had a hard childhood. Her parents divorced when she was 8. And this was especially hard on her because she was really close with her father. Let's see. They basically are saying at the beginning that she almost always spoke of feelings of premonitions that she would never live to be 16.
Oh, what the fuck?
And like I've heard, I've had friends say before, like, I don't think I'm gonna live very long, or like, but it sounds like it was anyone that knew her knew that she believed that.
Especially
like it
from
was
such
very
a
much
young
a part of
age.
her. Yeah, very much a part of her life. And she and her family moved to a residential apartment complex in Vegas in order to help her get her mind off her fears. Though that's how serious it was. Like she was really afraid. She made several friends and seemed to adjust well until her 16th birthday approached. Kathy once again feared that she was going to die. She spent all of her time in her room and refused to leave the house. On the morning of her 16th birthday, however, she was surprised and relieved to realize that she was still alive. She seemed to have overcome her fears, confiding in her family that the premonitions were unfounded, and began living a more normal teenage life. This is like she really believed it because she wouldn't even let herself live life until that birthday passed. That's crazy. She started to spend more time with her friends, began to wear makeup. She developed an interest in beauty products and had started pursuing a career as a beautician. She even planned to open her own hair salon called Cat's Cuts. However, she vanished without explanation on the night of July 23rd, 1987. That night, she was reading a book in her room. At 11 p.m., she told her mother, Vivian, that she was taking a quick trip to the nearby supermarket to purchase another book. The store was just a couple blocks away. Vivian believed that she would walk to the store with her friends that were in their apartment complex, as she normally did. However, none were around that night, so Kathy went alone. That was at 11 p.m. So at around 3 a.m., Vivian awoke from a sound sleep. She felt that this gives me chills.
I know.
She felt that she had been hit on the head. Afterwards, she had a peaceful feeling and felt that, quote, it was over. At the time, she did not understand the meaning of the experience. The next morning, Vivian discovered her daughter's bed was empty. She soon contacted the police, and an extensive search began. It was fear that she had been abducted. So everyone was out to search for her. One supermarket employee, who was later questioned by the police, said that he sold Kathy a book and she left. Nothing was out of the ordinary. Store receipts confirmed that someone had purchased a paperback novel at 11:17 p.m. on the night of her disappearance. The evidence showed that she had made it to the store at the Desert Inn Road and Maryland Parkway, but authorities could not determine where she went from there. It was believed that she was abducted. However, they were unable to find any witness to her abduction, despite the area being highly populated.
The fuck?
9 days later, a geologist he was out looking for rock crystals and discovered Kathy's body in a remote field near Lake Mead, an hour's drive from Vegas. Investigators found tire prints at the scene, which showed that a vehicle had pulled in, turned around, and left. 2 rocks found near her body were covered in blood. The blood was analyzed, and it was her blood type. The coroner determined she had died from repeated blows to the head.
Oh my God.
She had also been sexually assaulted. Tragically, it appears that Kathy's premonitions were almost accurate. Although she lived to the age of 16, she had been killed just 3 months after that. After her death, her family found, this another gives me chills too. Her family found letters that she had written to them. The letters were dated 1 month before her 16th birthday. That's how sure she was that she was going to die.
Wrote like goodbye letters.
Like she knew it. Yeah. She talked about how much she loved her family and did not want them to be upset about her death. As Kathy's family mourned, the authorities continued their investigation. Exactly 3 months after Kathy vanished, an answering machine at the Vegas Police Department recorded a call from an anonymous informant who claimed to have witnessed her abduction. He gave the correct location of where Kathy was last seen, along with an accurate description of what she was wearing that night. He said he didn't contact police because he was out of town for several months. Authorities theorized that Kathy was abducted by 1 or 2 people somewhere between the store and her apartment complex. They think that she was driven to the lake and killed that evening. The caller's story seemed to fit with their theory. The caller gave a license plate number for the abductor's car. However, the caller did not leave his name or contact info. The police checked the license plate number and discovered that it did not exist. Despite repeated appeals, the witness has never called back, and Kathy's murder remains unsolved. However, that was when there have since been results. So um, it has been solved. Although the identified caller never came forward, Kathy's case has since been closed. Authorities linked her murder to a serial killer named Michael Lee Lockhart from Toledo, Ohio. In May 1987, Lockhart stole a blue 1986 Toyota Celica and kept it until November 1987. Authorities believe that during this time, he abducted and murdered Kathy. Blue fibers found at the crime scene matched the fibers from the stolen vehicle.
Oh my
Credit
God.
card receipts also placed him in Vegas at the time of the murder. And then finally, when investigators questioned him about Kathy's case, he virtually confessed to the crime.
Wow.
He was convicted for a series of murders in Texas, Indiana, and Florida, and was eventually executed in Texas on December 9th, 1997. He had already been sentenced to death in 3 states.
Jesus.
Oh, that's why. Okay, because he had already been sentenced to death in 3 states, Nevada didn't pursue prosecution.
They're like, you're going to die, whatever. I mean, that isn't... Even if it's solved, it's not really solved in the fact that, like, how the fuck did she know she was going to die? I can't even imagine.
That's what gives me chills. And like, and there's no way to like separate it in life in the moment of like, am I working myself up in my head to thinking this? Am I being dramatic? There's all these reasons why people might say like, I'm going to die young or whatever. But the sheer certainty and fear of it. It wasn't like she wanted to die young, like glamorizing this thing. It was like she was terrified she wouldn't leave the house, wouldn't even begin her life until she turned 16. And then to even write her family like goodbye letters and like saying she's sorry, like you really believe that shit. I think she genuinely was like connected to something, because I also had a friend that passed young. She was like 25. And a week before she passed, I worked with her and she came into work and she was telling me about how she like been having trouble sleeping, but that night she woke up like a complete, and she didn't have panic attacks. Like it wasn't a thing that happened to her. She woke up a complete panic attack, hyperventilating. Her boyfriend had to like come over like in the middle of the night, and she was like laughing about it the next day, but like I don't know what happened. Like, and I think it was less than a week before she died. I think it was like 3 or 4 days before. And you know, obviously there's a lot of reasons that those things happen and panic attacks, but like it was so out of the blue for her. And she commented on it to me. It was just like, I don't know what, like something in me just like panicked and freaked out. And I've always wondered like if just something in her spirit knew like your time is coming to an end, and it was like tragic, you know? And so it's just like something in you, I don't know, man. Because it can't be that random with everybody.
No, it can't. It's just the things that happen. I have no words. It's just so fucking crazy to me. Okay, well, the next case that we're going to dive into is called the Lead Mask Case.
Yeah.
On August 20th, 1966, a man was flying a kite on Vintim Hill in Niterói, Brazil, when he stumbled upon the bodies of 2 young men partially covered in grass and leaves. The men were wearing formal suits, waterproof coats, and each had a pair of homemade lead masks covering their eyes. Police found an empty water bottle, a receipt for the bottle, 2 small wet towels, and a notebook nearby the bodies. Besides work note, the notebook mysteriously read 1630, be at determined place. 1830, swallow capsules. After effect, protect metals, wait for signal in Portuguese.
After effect, protect metals?
Protect metals, wait for signal. Okay?
The most...
yeah.
What?
There were no signs of trauma or any evidence of a struggle. No autopsy or toxicology report was ever performed because the coroner's The coroners were all so busy, leaving the internal organs. Coroners all
What?
too busy. I don't know. Leaving the internal organs of the victims to become too decomposed for reliable testing. The men were identified as Manuel Pereira de Cruz and Miguel Jose Viana. There were 2 electronic technicians from Campos dos Goytocases, forgive me. Friends and family told police that the 2 left town 3 days earlier on August 17th to go buy work supplies and possibly a car, saying that they would only be gone for that afternoon. And instead, the men rode a bus 110 miles to Niterói, 110 miles, allegedly with the money to purchase all that they needed. When they arrived, they bought waterproof coats at a local shop and 1 bottle of water from a local bar. The bartender later told police that the men were very nervous and constantly checking their watches. Police believe this occurred right before they left for the hillside, and the men were never seen alive again. Over 50 years later, the mystery remains unsolved and has led to many outlandish theories and possible explanations to what had happened. The men could have simply committed suicide together. Some believe the men were misled and killed for their work supply money. The 2 have been attempting a secret deal involving radioactive material or other illegal substances that led to their deaths. Others propose that they may have been time travelers or abducted by aliens because of the many UFO reports in that area before and after their deaths.
Oh.
People close to the men suggested that they were part of a group known as scientific spiritualists in Brazil. Books relating to spiritualism and materials used to make the lead glasses were found in one of their homes. 4 years prior, another electronic technician had been found wearing a similar lead mask on a hilltop nearby Vinton Hill. Friends told police that they had built a device which exploded in their backyard 2 months prior to their deaths. What the fuck are they doing? It is thought that the men were...
Time travel.
I know. It is thought that the men were attempting to use the device to contact Mars in order to pursue their spiritual interests. The Skeptoid podcast theorized the men had overdosed on drugs while waiting to witness an explosion that would trigger a spiritual experience based on the items police found in their homes and the underground spiritualist movement happening at that time in Brazil. No one knows what the capsules were or the signal the men were waiting on. However, the receipt with the water bottle suggests the men were planning to return it and get money back, signifying that whatever had been planned didn't involve them dying at the hilltop. Yeah.
That to me is giving time travel or aliens or both.
What the fuck? I just feel like with everything, like that note bugs me out the most, right? 1630 at the determined place. 1830 swallow capsules, after effect, protect metals. Wait for signal. So like, I think the bummer of this whole thing is that there was no toxicology or autopsy to see what the capsules
was glazed
were.
over. Like that was just glazed over. Okay, so these men clearly took capsules and died, but the toxicologists are too busy.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
There has to be more to it.
There's a hole in that story. Yeah.
It's so fucking weird. How that went. I mean, 1966, I guess it wasn't that, we weren't on the ball, I guess.
Right.
The Brazilian. No, but that is such a creepy one.
Yeah, that's really weird. I love that one because it's so just like vague.
Yeah, I know.
So this is Teresita Bassa.
Oh my God.
This one is crazy. And I've heard stuff like this. Like this happens.
I am sorry. Well, I'll talk about you. Okay. Yeah.
She's originally from the Philippines. She lived in Chicago where she worked as a respiratory therapist at Edgewater Hospital. So on the evening of February 21st, 1977, neighbors who lived down the hall from Teresita contacted their apartment building's janitor when they smelled smoke, but were unable to pinpoint the origin. Concerned, the janitor called the fire department before evacuating the building's residents. When firefighters arrived, they located the source of the fire, which was Teresita's apartment. Thankfully, they were able to put the fire out quickly. Unfortunately, they soon realized that the fire was not accidental. In fact, it was used to hide a crime, Teresita's murder. So the ensuing investigation revealed further details about the murder and camouflaging arson. She had been stripped naked, and a butcher knife plunged deep into her chest.
Jesus.
That's so aggressive and like very animalistic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Clothes were thrown over her corpse before being set ablaze. A mattress had then been placed over her body and subsequently set on fire as well. This left detectives little doubt that the murderer had used multiple fires to destroy any physical evidence they could use to find the killer. Given the fact that Teresita had been found naked, detectives drew the conclusion that she had been the victim of sexual assault. To their surprise, the autopsy revealed otherwise. Left with no apparent motive and most physical evidence having been destroyed by the fire, detectives were at a loss. Their only significant clue was a note Teresita had written, "Get theater tickets for AS," which raised the question, who was AS?
Who is AS?
Over the next several weeks, detectives interviewed people who knew her, neighbors, coworkers, friends, classmates, few to no leads. No one had any idea who had wanted to murder someone so universally considered kind and polite. The case went cold. Nearly half a year after the murder.
6 months after.
Oh, Remy, yeah.
Remy,
yeah.
yeah.
6 months after. Remy Chua came forward. I cannot read right now either. Although hailing from the Philippines, Remy worked at Edgewater Hospital with Teresita. Remy told detectives that after her coworker's murder, she began to dream of the other woman. In her dreams, Teresita would beg her to go to the police and tell them what happened. According to Remy's husband, during one of these episodes, Remy began talking in her sleep, except he said the voice didn't belong to his wife. The voice claimed to be Teresita Basa. She told no. And
if Ryan like just started having premonitions in another voice, no, I'm out.
She told Remy's husband that a man named Alan Showery, AS, had killed her. The voice revealed that Showery was an orderly who also worked at Edgewater Hospital. Despite these explosive revelations, Remy remembered nothing of what she had said after she woke up. In addition, her husband decided not to go to the police. His reluctance is understandable. No one wants to tell police they learned information about a violent crime from a ghost, especially when there's no evidence corroborating the claims. Obviously, that's an easy way to make detectives suspicious of your potential involvement.
Yeah.
But no one can say Teresita's ghost wasn't persistent. She possessed a sleeping Remy again and asked Remy's husband why he hadn't done as she'd asked and gone to the police. After telling her that there was no evidence of Showery's involvement, Teresita's ghost told her that Showery had taken some of her jewelry and given it to his girlfriend.
This is insane.
So, upon hearing this account from Remy and her husband, detectives were rightfully dubious. It sounds unbelievable. Nevertheless, they investigated the claims. After all, Alan Showery did have the initials AS, matching the information from their only clue. What they found surprised them. Showery lived near Teresita. According to coworkers, he'd planned to go to her apartment to fix her TV the evening of the murder. When detectives brought him in for questioning, Showery confirmed that he had indeed gone to her apartment that evening, but had gone home after he'd realized he didn't have the right tools to complete the repair. Okay. Skeptical of his recounting of events, detectives then contacted his girlfriend. They learned that she had recently received jewelry from him. Following this lead, the girlfriend allowed Teresita's friends and family to examine the jewelry. They confirmed that it had belonged to the deceased woman.
Bro!
Like,
there's no fucking way Remy or her husband would have known this.
No.
It's one thing for just to say Alan Showery's name, but then to say, no, jewelry, he stole jewelry, go check on that shit.
Because Remy's husband was like, I didn't go to the police because there's no proof. And then she gave him an actual fact.
Yep.
Shortly thereafter, Showery confessed to the crime. He said that after he'd left her apartment the first time, he planned to return and rob her. His efforts yielded little reward, though. Teresita kept little cash in her apartment, and as a result, Showery ended up taking the jewelry that eventually led to his capture. Without those pieces and Remy's aid, he would never have been caught. While his plan to mask the robbery as a sexual assault quickly unraveled, the multiple fires had been quite effective in destroying any physical evidence. He was charged and tried for Teresita's murder. Despite confessing his crime to detectives, he still pleaded not guilty.
Yeah, it's so
When
weird.
when the trial ended in a hung jury, it seemed like he would get away with murder. But while he waited in prison for a retrial, he had a change of heart and pleaded guilty. While the obvious explanation for this reversal was a sentence reduction, people whispered that Teresita's ghost had visited him in prison.
Oh.
See, that's like, to this day, let's see. So this story hit newspapers across the U.S., a case where a ghost solved her own murder. To this day, Remy maintains that she was possessed by the other woman's spirit. Detectives also support the claim. They also support the claim of supernatural aid because they have no other explanation of what happened. The case went on to be featured in Unsolved Mysteries and Beyond Belief. It was included in a book and inspired the TV film Voice from the Grave.
So insane.
It's crazy because it's like we all think, well, not we all think, like you hear it, it's a common belief that like, when someone loses a loved one, it's like they're still with you. And I personally believe that because of some experiences I've had where I'm like, I do believe that once people pass, they're with us and they can still in some way see or know what's happening. I don't know, obviously, if it's like visual or what, but this is crazy because can you imagine like she's killed. And then not only does she like come back and she knows who it was, but she was like watching what he did next.
Mm-hmm.
Like he took my jewelry, he gave it to his girlfriend. Like her spirit is like consciously logging this. Like that's insane.
It's like, I believe it. I do. I believe all this. My question is, why do some spirits pick and choose? Like, why hasn't John Benet Ramsey
Oh, yeah.
possessed anybody to tell what happened to her? But we're not talking about John Benet in this story. I mean, everyone knows John Benet. Did you ever see, there's like a really good docuseries about her, like, I think 2020 or 2019. Yeah. I lost my shit watching that.
I know.
Because of all the details that I didn't remember because I was a kid when that happened. We both were. Yeah. But it's like, why doesn't she possess somebody? It's so interesting where like some spirits know there's unfinished business and will do something about it, like in Teresita's case, but in others not. It's so strange.
Just, I guess it just makes sense only in that humans vary so much in our differences in personalities. Like if someone comes up to me and accuses me of murder, I'm going to defend myself and say, no, I didn't. But there are people who will say, no, I didn't. And then give it up and be like, fuck it. What is life for anyway? And they'll just go with it. Or like we are, as humans, we accept that like our reactions to crazy situations are vastly different. Like, so why would it not be the case that like once somebody is dead, somebody's spirit is like, I'm going to possess this woman and I'm going to make sure. And I know where my jewelry went. And then some are maybe just like, I'm moving on. I'm transitioning. This is my afterlife. I'm at peace. Like we have to, if we acknowledge how different we are as humans, our spirits, like why not?
No, you're right.
But and also like kids versus adults or like,
that's true.
I don't know.
5 or 6. Yeah. Well,
but it never said why. It said he went there to rob her, didn't get a lot of money and was mad, tried to cover it up as sexual assault, but nowhere did it explain why he killed her.
Yeah, just rob her and go. Why did you have to? And the fact that he was like, yeah, I did it. Fuck it. You know what I mean? Like, because there wasn't I don't know. I don't know.
So weird.
I love that they're like, yeah, this is supernatural. That's literally how we got this.
Yeah.
They didn't have any evidence besides the fact that it was her jewelry. And but the fire burned so many things.
And there are like plenty of, because I love watching true crime shows and like series on Netflix. And there are a good amount of, because, detectives, obviously it's their job. Like you need facts and you need hard evidence or that's like what you need. And there are like tons of situations where this weird shit happens. And even the detectives are like, by the end, they're like, I don't know any other explanation, but like, I believe that. And that's what helped us solve the case. So if you ask me, yes, that happened.
Yeah. Do you want to do one more?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe 2 if we're feeling, but I don't know. Maybe not. You guys just stay tuned.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. Choose your own adventure.
But this one's a weird one. I don't know if there's like paranormal, but this is just the fact that this was pulled off is wild. So this is called the Circleville Writer. In 1976, several Circleville, Ohio residents began receiving strange letters detailing personal information about their lives. Bus driver Mary Gillespie was accused of a supposedly non-existent affair with the superintendent of the schools. The writer of these letters told Mary that he or she had been observing her house and knew she had children. It was postmarked Columbus, Ohio, but had no return address. Within 8 days, Mary received a similar letter. She kept the letters to herself until her husband, Ron, received one as well. The letter stated that if Ron did not stop his wife's affair, his life would be in danger. After 2 weeks, the writer threatened to go public with the affair allegations, broadcasting it on TVs, radios, billboards. Mary and Ron only told 3 people about the letters: Ron's sister, her husband, Paul, the sister's husband, Paul Freshore, and Paul's sister. Mary had some ideas about who might be sending the letters. They decided to have Paul write letters to the suspect, claiming that they know who he or she was, like just to see. The plan seemed to work. The letters stopped for several weeks.
But how did they send them if there's no return address?
It was postmarked Columbus, Ohio. I think it said postmarked Columbus, Ohio, but it had no return address. I don't know. That is a good question. That is a good point. I don't know how. I wonder if this is maybe a public thing. Like I don't know, because it was before they went public. Because the writer threatened. I don't know. But yes, that's true. There was no return address, but they managed to get back to the writer because the letters ended up stopping for several weeks after they said, they're like, we know who you are, stop it. And like, okay, so the letter stopped. But that changed on August 19th, 1977, when Ron received a phone call from the alleged writer. The call seemed to confirm Ron's suspicions on the identity of the writer. He grabbed his gun and then left in his pickup truck, even though the writer claimed to be watching the truck. And a few minutes later, Ron was found dead in his pickup truck, crashed into a tree. It's so bizarre. Investigators later learned that Ron had fired at least one shot from his gun before crashing. Sheriff Dwight Radcliffe questioned and eliminated at least one suspect in the case. He then ruled Ron's death an accident, claiming that he had lost control and crashed while driving drunk. However, several residents soon received letters stating that Sheriff Radcliffe had been involved in a cover-up. Right? This is the sheriff. According to Paul, Sheriff Radcliffe initially agreed that the death was a result of foul play. However, he allegedly changed his mind when the suspect passed a polygraph test. Ron's blood alcohol level was 0.16, which is twice the legal limit. However, many of Ron's friends and families were surprised by this. They did not think he was a heavy drinker at all. They're like, that doesn't make sense how he would die, and it doesn't make sense he wasn't a drinker. Mary and the superintendent later acknowledged a relationship, although they claim that it did not start until after the letters were sent. Weird. In February of 1983, Mary was harassed along her bus route, and the letter writer apparently began placing threatening signs next to the road on her route.
That's so creepy.
One day, Mary had enough and decided to go and rip the sign down. When she did, she discovered a booby trap designed to kill her. The trap had a box which contained a small pistol. If Mary had pulled the sign off a certain way, the gun would have fired. An amateurish attempt was made to rub off the serial number of the gun. When lab tests were able to raise the number, it was determined that the gun had belonged to Paul, who had recently separated from Ron's sister. Paul, however, claimed that the gun had been stolen. On February 25th, 1983, Sheriff Radcliffe asked Paul to meet with him and take a handwriting test. He asked Paul to try and copy the handwriting of the letters. Sheriff Radcliffe had also had him write the letters while repeating them verbally. And after the test, Paul took Sheriff Radcliffe to his garage and showed him where he kept his gun. Afterwards, the two returned to the courthouse where Paul was arrested and charged with attempted murder. On October 24th, 1983, he went on trial for the attempted murder of Mary Gillespie, although he was never charged with writing the threatening letters. They became a crucial part of the evidence against him. A handwriting expert testified that Paul was the letter writer. Mary also testified that she believed that he was the writer after his wife visited her with the same suspicion. Paul's boss also testified that he was not at work on the day that the booby trap was found. Hold on, there's more. Paul had an alibi for most of the day. However, he never took the stand in his defense. Proclaiming his innocence, he was convicted and given a 7 to 24-year sentence. While there, he himself received letters from the writer determined to keep him there. Others still received letters postmarked from Columbus, even though he was in prison in Lima. So understand what's happening right now. Letters are still being written, but Paul is in jail and they're postmarked from Lima. Even though he was in solitary confinement, letters kept arriving.
Wow.
Okay. In December 1990, Paul became eligible for parole. He was denied parole due to the letters, even though there was no way that he could be sending them. In May 94, Paul was finally paroled. He continues to maintain his innocence. However, the author of the letters had never been revealed. Journalist Martin Yant had investigated the story and found another possible suspect that could be the writer. He also discovered that 20 minutes before Mary found the booby trap, another bus driver on Mary's route had seen a suspicious man standing near a yellow El Camino. The man was at the same spot where the trap would later be found. Yant found that the possible suspect's brother owned the same type of car. The description does not match Paul, and he had a solid alibi for the specific time. While Unsolved Mysteries was filming the story, they received a postcard apparently from the letter writer. It read, "Forget Circleville, Ohio. Do nothing to hurt Sheriff Radcliffe. If you come to Ohio, you El Sickos will pay the Circleville writer."
What the
So
fuck?
the writer is still wanted to this day.
Wow.
Their identity remains unrevealed since his case had been brought. However, Paul, who maintained a blog for several years, passed away in 2012. Never knowing the identity of the Circleville writer, he still maintained his innocence.
Wow.
They said, it's like, no, like the writer, they said his handwriting matched and that he didn't have a solid alibi that day. He wasn't at work. And he was one of the only people that knew about the affair, the alleged affair where the
yeah.
So
and like I'm so hung up on like I'll write the guy back and then the letters stop, like because Paul was the one that was like, I'll write a letter back to him and say that I know
it was
who
Ron.
he is.
I think it was Ron, right? Yeah.
No, I think it's Paul, right?
They decided to have Paul write the letters to the suspect. You're right. You're right. It was Paul. I kept thinking
That's
it was
why,
Ron.
like when you read that part at the very beginning, I was like, oh well, it was Paul.
Yeah.
Like, because I'm like, he didn't even have an address, but there's some things missing in here. Like what?
Yeah. How did they know who to write to?
Yeah, and why did Paul do it? And
yeah, why would Paul? There's no fucking motive there either. And no matter, and the fact that the letters were coming, he was in solitary confinement. And the letters were coming, unless he's a part of like
had someone else.
Yeah,
I see Mama in the background.
Oh yeah,
like had someone else do it.
I don't know.
I do want to do this next one. I haven't read it yet, so this is gonna be like.
I'm excited. This one's. Like, it's weird. It doesn't make any sense at all.
So Maura Murray.
Yeah.
Disappeared.
Oh, start on February 24th or the February 9th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It disappeared after a car accident on February 9th, 2004. So on February 9th, 2004, Maura Murray was driving along Route 112 in Woodsville, New Hampshire around 7:25 p.m. when her car ran into a snowbank. When police arrived at the scene of the accident on Route 112, they found Murray's 1996 Saturn sedan, but there was no sign of Murray herself. The crash was reportedly severe enough that there was a crack in the windshield and the airbags had deployed. Murray's belongings were still in the car as well, including clothes, running gear, textbooks, and copious amounts of alcohol. There was also a copy of a printed MapQuest directions to Burlington, Vermont, where she may have been traveling to look at a rental property. Um, Butch Atwood was driving a school bus down Route 112 when he saw Murray's crashed car. Atwood stopped and offered to call 911, but Murray informed him that she had already called AAA. Atwood knew she was lying, however, since there was no cell service in the area.
Weird. Already weird.
Why would you lie? Murray reportedly went so fast as to, quote unquote, plead with Atwood not to call 911. I wonder if she was drunk and she was just like, so despite Murray's request, Atwood called 911 when he arrived home and did another witness who saw the crash from her kitchen window. The timeline of the crash, 911 calls, and the arrival of police indicate that Murray vanished in the span of about 7 minutes. Murray claimed to be leaving school due to a family emergency. As investigators put together a timeline leading up to her disappearance, they discovered an email that she had sent to her professors and supervisor on the afternoon of February 9th. The email stated that Murray had to leave town for a week due to a death in the family. However, no one in her family had actually died. Before sending the email about missing classes and work, Murray took the time to upload a class assignment. Her textbooks were also found in her car on the evening of February 9th.
So it's like weird lies for no reason.
Yeah, and if you're trying to like go and die, you don't upload an assignment and bring your textbooks with you.
Right.
I feel like.
Right.
2 days before she disappeared, her father, Fred Murray, had come down to Amherst to help her look for a new car. Her 1996 Saturn sedan was barely drivable and produced large plumes of smoke while driving. That evening, Murray borrowed her father's new Toyota Corolla to go to a party. Driving back to her father's motel in the early hours of February 8th, Murray crashed the car into a guardrail, causing nearly $10,000 in damage to the car. There's no indication that Murray underwent a breathalyzer test, but she was reportedly upset following the accident.
So she had an accident like
the night before.
Yeah, 2 days before. 2 days before, yeah.
Well, February 8th, but this happened on the 9th.
Oh, is it 2 days before she disappeared?
Well, so, 2 days before her dad came down to help her look for a new car. But on the 8th, yeah, she went to that party.
So weird. Like the night before, like how do you do two
she
crashes?
caused like $10,000 in damage to her dad's car.
Yeah.
Yeah, the night before.
So
and then
weird.
on Thursday, February 5th, so before that, 4 days before her accident on Route 112, she received a phone call at her campus job that left her visibly distraught. Murray's supervisor, Karen, later stated that she saw Murray sitting at her desk in a quasi-catatonic state. She was just looking right past me. It was very weird. Karen later explained. At first, Murray couldn't even speak to Karen. I'm calling her Karen because it says her last name. But she eventually murmured, "My sister." Karen proceeded to walk Murray back to her dorm room.
Like that bad that she had to walk her back. It's so weird.
Yeah. At the time of her disappearance, Murray was dating Bill Rausch, whom she had met during her time at West Point, but the couple's relationship was reportedly not without issues. Rausch had been accused of infidelity, and Murray had also been having an affair with her track coach, Hussein Baghdadi. What? Baghdadi later stated that Murray had talked to him about running away, as well as wanting to get away from an allegedly controlling Rausch. Rausch was stationed in Oklahoma at the time of Murray's disappearance, and her final email to him, sent at 1 p.m. on February 9th, read, "I love you more, stud. I got your messages, but honestly, I didn't feel like talking to much of anyone. I promise I'll call today, though. Love you, Maura."
So, like, this doesn't sound like someone that wants to die or wants to run away, and, you know.
Right. Some theorize that Murray fled the scene of the February 9th accident because she was on probation. Murray had been caught using a stolen credit card number to purchase food and have it delivered to her dorm room. After being caught, she was put on a 3-month probation, which would prevent her from facing criminal charges as long as she didn't get to any trouble. Okay, I mean, that makes sense, but some have also noted that Murray left West Point after being caught stealing lip gloss, though there's no direct link between the two events.
Such lame little crimes.
Yeah. But also, like, enough little things that you're like, something's going on. Like,
yeah, there's a pattern.
When police investigated Murray's dorm room for possible clues, they found that the room had been completely packed up. Pictures had been taken off the walls, drawers emptied, moving boxes were sealed shut. Police reportedly took the state of Murray's room as evidence that she planned to permanently leave school. On top of one box was a letter written to Bill Rausch that allegedly pertained to issues in their relationship. Rausch later said that there was no note left for him. Okay, so no one took pictures of this evidence when they go to investigate
I
her
don't
dorm.
know.
Murray's father maintains that someone took her. Fred Murray had been openly critical of the investigation and his daughter's disappearance, believing that it should have been handled as a homicide investigation rather than missing persons case. Murray has maintained that someone abducted Maura in the 7 minutes it took police to arrive on the scene. 10 years after her disappearance, her dad, Fred Murray, stated in an interview, "Somebody locally grabbed her who knows the area, knows where to go, knows how to get into some place and out of some place without being seen." For years after his daughter's disappearance, he continued driving along the stretch of Route 112 where the crash happened. That's so sad.
I know.
Faith Westman was the first person to call 911 when she heard the crash from inside her home. She initially told authorities that she saw a man smoking a cigarette outside of Murray's car, but later she said she could have been mistaken. However, there had been speculation over the years that a tandem driver could have been following Murray and picked her up after the accident.
Weird.
This theory also ties into a statement from a sales clerk who sold Murray alcohol. The clerk claims that Murray came into a liquor store with 2 other women who appeared to be her friends.
Oh my God, this is so weird.
Yeah. And then, is this the same thing?
Yes.
Yeah. On April 3rd, 2019, the FBI and New Hampshire State Police searched a home near the crash site based on evidence obtained by the Murray family. Fred Murray went to the authorities stating that cadaver dogs and a radar scan of the home's basement indicated that something was buried underneath. Murray had suspected for years that Maura had been taken to the house. I wonder why. And he was finally given permission to search it when new owners bought the property. Upon digging up the basement's concrete floor, investigators found no trace of Maura Murray. "This one hurts," Fred Murray said afterwards. "I thought we finally had it. I was pretty sure." In September of 2021, bone fragments were found at the construction site near about 25 miles east of where she crashed her car. Murray's family was hopeful that the fragments would lead to answers. And experts used radiocarbon dating to test the age of the bones, and the process took 2 months to complete. In November of 2021, authorities determined that bones were from sometime between 1774 and 1942 and could not have been the remains of Maura.
So there's just, and I love that. It was like so recently, just like November of this past year.
Yeah, it was like 6 months ago.
Yeah, that they, they were so hopeful that they could have found her bones, and it obviously wasn't hers. And it's just so, this disappearance is just so weird.
It's so weird because there's signs that indicate that she was planning to leave and go away, but then signs that indicate that if you're watching YouTube, you guys just saw that. Signs that indicate that she didn't want to permanently go away.
Yeah, no, nothing tracked. And the fact that her dad is so animate that someone took her, but she was acting so weird.
I wonder why he said that he, for years, was certain that she was taken to that house.
I'm wondering because he goes down that road all the time, and maybe it's a suspicious house that's like in a very convenient spot.
Well, and the fact that he did his own research, because he called and told them cadaver dogs found this, and a radio heat scan of the house shows this. Like, he had all that done on his own.
Bizarre.
That's crazy. And the fact that like the woman saw a man smoking a cigarette outside her car, why? That's I understand, like, it's easy to be like, did I even see that? I mean, who knows? Maybe I didn't, and then doubt it. But that's a specific thing to say. And then also it does make sense if this was something darker that like someone had been following her, and then.
But the driver, there was a bus driver, right? That like saw the crash, didn't see the other guy. And then, but there was a clerk that sold Maura alcohol earlier that night, said that she was with women. It's like
so weird.
no one's come out to be like, yeah, I was with her that night.
I because it's always the husband or the boyfriend, but like it's weird to me. Well, obviously it said that it wasn't that great and there was reports of abuse or something, but also he the fact that when they went to her dorm to investigate, they saw a letter addressed to him on a box, and then he to this day claims that there was no such letter, is like, what
happened?
And then why didn't they go to the crime scene? If you're going to investigate her dorm room, you go in and you take pictures of everything as is. That's like procedure.
Yeah.
So why didn't they do that? Because if the letter was there.
Maybe they thought it was a letter, but it was just maybe her like journaling about her relationship with him, and they assumed it was to him. I don't know. I mean, everything, it doesn't make any sense how she's still not found. And
That's crazy.
There's no evidence to anything. She just vanished into thin air.
And like the weird thing of like getting into an accident the night before and causing 10 grand of damage on her dad's car the night before.
Doesn't make
and
any
all
sense.
The alcohol that was in her car. It's just a lot of weird.
So many weird things. And this is going to keep people up at night, stories like this.
I know, including me, because now it's 8:30 and I'm going to be like.
I know, wired with this shit.
All the lights on in Disney movies and.
I know. Oh, guys, I hope you enjoyed our little spooky episode.
Yes, I hope you enjoy a little creepy / depression about the state of humanity. I hope you're inspired by the fact that maybe those two dudes were time traveling.
I know. I think so. 100%.
Or trying.
Or they counted some aliens.
Yeah, or that.
And like, remember they said there was like alien UFO sightings the days leading up to their disappearance and the days after. So there was already activity.
Yeah, that's crazy. I love that.
I don't know. Well, guys, that's our show.
That's our show for the day.
Follow us at the SOS Pod on Instagram, Twitter, SOS with Molly and Alyssa on YouTube, and then Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, wherever you find your podcasts, we're there. Rate and review us. It helps us reach more people. We have a Patreon that is really great because you can get some goodies, exclusive content, bloopers, merch, you name it, it's there. $3, $7, $11, whatever. We'll take it all. So shout out to Steve, Nija, and Nancy for being wonderful patrons. We love you.
Yes, we do. I'm Molly Cottrell.
I'm Alyssa Rosano.
Here's to turning meltdowns
into magic.